Hello friends and potential friends. Jack here in the middle of my new Geeky Gardens version 2.0. It's been a bit of work and it's not finished yet, but then the reality is the garden ever finished? Mine's been going for almost 10 years now and it's still in a state of incomplete, and it probably always will be. Today is Saturday, December 11th, 2021. It's about 11 o'clock in the morning. The temperature is up around 77 degrees. We're supposed to top out at about 80 this afternoon. Farther inland, they're looking at low to mid 80s, but we get a nice breeze off the ocean over here, so that helps to moderate the temperature some. As you can see, I've been busy. If you remember right, I used to have 3 16-foot wooden beds right here, and over the last month or so I've transformed that into 4-foot by 8-foot metal beds. To be honest, the wooden beds were falling apart. See, we have subterranean termites down here just about everywhere, and when you put wood in contact with the ground, it's going to get eaten. You can use pressure treated wood and that'll last a bit longer, but untreated wood is good for about maybe 5 years. Now, my beds were starting to fall apart on me, and I really should have addressed this last year, but I tried to nurse one more year out of them, and that was about all I could get. So I started doing some research. I looked at replacing them with more wooden beds. Again, if I used untreated wood to make those beds, I'd be good to get 5 years out of them. Pressure treated, I can actually get about 10 years, and I do have a couple of pressure treated beds out here. I'll show you one of those in a minute. But if you've looked at the price of lumber recently and then its availability, it started looking to me like wood was not going to be the way to go. So I started doing some research. I looked at a number of different metal beds. They're a bit pricey, but if you think about the long term, these beds that I've used here, the ones I settled on, are from Vego-Garden. I actually was introduced to them by the Roots and Refuge channel. And when I finally decided to go with this model, this brand, I went through Roots and Refuge's affiliate link. That would have got me, I think, 10% off, something like that. But as it turned out, when I decided to go ahead and buy these, Vego-Garden was having a pretty decent sale. And as it turned out, the sale price saved me quite a bit more than the affiliate link price would have. Plus, I signed up for their newsletter, email notifications, and that got me free shipping. And let me tell you, these things are not light. I imagine it costs a lot to ship them. But they're good quality. The company says they should last 20 years, and I can't find any lumber that'll do that. So if they do turn out to last 20 years or even 10 years, I figure I'm going to be ahead. They'll pay for themselves just in the cost of lumber replacement, not to mention the work of doing the replacement. Now, when I get this finished completely, well, when I get it to the point where I think it is ready, I'm going to put together a time-lapse video showing the whole process. And hopefully I can get that to run fast enough to where it'll be short enough that people might actually want to watch it. But anyway, I didn't want to wait until then because I got things to show you. So let me get you off of that tripod and we'll take a walk around and get a close-up of what's going on here in the version 2.0 of Geeky Gardens. Of course, I still have my patient's bed. In fact, that is what I base the rest of the garden off of. You'll see I've got a 3-foot walkway between the patient's bed and this raised bed. In the previous version, where I had 3 beds in here, I only had about 1.5 feet between each one. And that became a problem, especially when things started hanging over the edges. I can easily get through between the beds. I can bring my garden cart back here, anywhere I need to put it. And most importantly, you see my little buddy over there, Licorice. See, we have a routine. Every morning after I feed the cats, I come out here and he and I go for a walk in the garden. Now, his idea of a walk in the garden means he knows where I'm going to go, and he'll walk up and plop himself down right in front of me, usually rolling over on his back because he likes to have his belly scratched. Yes, he does. The problem is, with only 1.5 feet between the beds, he could cover up the whole walk, and I couldn't get past him. At least not without stepping on him. So he is really the reason that I've got 3 feet between each bed. It'll make everything work out better in the long run, I'm sure. But that was my ultimate decision maker. Now, you'll remember that used to have sweet potatoes right there. And I was waiting on those sweet potatoes to get out of the way before I could build these first 2 beds. In the center, I had my mild pepper beds. Those were actually the first that I was able to get done with, and so I was able to dismantle that bed. But I still couldn't do anything with until the sweet potatoes were gone, because I based this off of the patient's garden. I measured out 3 feet from the patient's garden, and that's where I wanted this first row of beds to be. That also happened to be right in the middle of where the sweet potatoes were growing. So when I finally dug the sweet potatoes, I was able to start building these beds, which was nice because I had a bunch of tomatoes in the lab that I needed to move outside. You see, down here in Central Florida, this time of year is pretty much our springtime. I planted my tomatoes in the lab, back in September, and I had to get them outside so I could get some tomatoes on them, hopefully before Christmas time. And I think I'm going to make that because I've got blossoms all over the place. On this side, these are all Roma tomatoes, and as you can see, I've got tomatoes forming all over the place as well. But I've got little Roma tomatoes coming on all over the place. Down here along the front of the tomatoes, I planted a row of onions. These are Texas Early Grano 502 onions. And they're finally coming up. I'm not sure if you can really see those in there. They're kind of in the shade still, but they're coming on pretty good. I've moved pineapples. Still have one more that I'm going to have to move. But on to the rest of the tomatoes. On this side of the bed, I've got Ponderosa tomatoes down here. And let's see, there's a little teeny tiny one right there. I think you can see that. But if you can't, I've got some bigger ones down here I can show you. And again, I've got blossoms all over the place. I've got 3 Ponderosas down at this end. I've got a Praxis cherry tomato right here in the middle. And these ones at this end are the Mule Team tomatoes. Looks like I should have tomatoes by Christmas. If that's not enough, I really had a bunch of other tomatoes that I wound up just putting them in pots because I didn't have any beds to put them in. But I've got tomatoes growing on those as well. Let's see if I can get around here and spot a few. Oh, there's some. Am I holding this right? I can't even see if they're showing up in the view screen. Those ones are red Brandywines. In fact, a lot of these in here are red Brandywines. I've got some Abe Lincolns, Brad's Atomic. Next to those tomatoes in the containers is a little salad bed. Here closest to me, I've got Black Beauty eggplants. Next to them, I've got a few kohlrabi. These are purple Vienna kohlrabi. And can you see that? That one there is already starting to form a little bulb down there. And then I've got a few kale plants. It's a curly Scotch kale, if I remember right. And then I've got some of my favorite cabbage collards here in the first row. This year, well, since I grew so many of these greens last year, this year I decided I was just going to grow enough to eat off of. I don't need to be canning any more of them. I put away 48 pints last year. Okay, the second bed that I got put together is this one right here. And I couldn't sit there and look at an empty garden bed, so I planted a bunch of onions. Let's see if we can get down here and see some of them. Those are Hishiko green onions in that row. Next to them, the Walla Walla onions haven't come up. I've got a few Southern White Globe onions coming up in this row. And there's a few red burgundy onions. Some more Texas Early Grano 502 onions. White sweet Spanish onions. There's a few bunching onions coming up in this row. And then we switch over to radishes because I ran out of onion varieties. Got some French breakfast radishes, then I've got some watermelon radishes, some sparkler white tip radishes, some German giant radishes, and I finished it off with a row of purple top turnips here at the end, mainly because I like turnip and I happen to know they grow well down here. The third bed over here, I really don't have much planted in here, though I do have some more plants sprouting in the lab. I put a little bit of rosemary here at the end, along with one more kohlrabi and some golden acre cabbage. And then at the far end, just a few days ago, I planted about 7 or 8 cloves of elephant garlic. And there's really nothing in the middle here yet, but I'm working on taking care of that. My friend at Guten Gardening got me thinking about trying once again to grow some cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. So I've got some of those sprouting in the lab, and they'll be going in here as soon as they're done, as soon as they're ready. And just this week I finished putting together this bed. As you can see, it's not finished up yet. I need to get about 8 or 10 bags of composted manure to top this off with, and then it'll be ready to start planting. I did clear out quite a bit of the debris from that tree back here, and as you can see, I've still got piles laying around all over the place. See, I broke down and bought a chipper shredder, and my intention is to cover all of these walkways with wood chips like I have here. I think ultimately that'll work out good if I can get that chipper to work right. I can tell you a brand of chipper shredder to avoid, but I've got it now, so I've got to make it work. But anyway, that really is the big reveal. Let me walk over here and I'll show you why I decided on metal. This pile of lumber is what's left of the bottom row of the 1x6s that I had my previous beds made out of. And as you can see, this is what our termites do. You put wood on the ground and they consider it lunch. And then this is my experimental bed. This is the first bed that I built out here in my garden, and that was about 8 years ago. It's made out of pressure treated 2x6s that I gathered up along the river after a hurricane. These things used to be part of a boat dock. Put them together with 2x4s because I really couldn't get more than about a 5-foot length anywhere out of them. They've been painted, which I know is not the best thing for a garden, but they've held up for about 8 years now. They're starting to show some wear and tear. I don't think this one's going to last more than another 2 years, and then it'll have to be replaced. But meanwhile, I'll keep using it, and ultimately I'll probably get another of those 4x8 Vegos to put here when it finally does fall apart. But that's it for now, and I'll see you on the next video.